Picture this. You're 10 years old, thriving, active, healthy, an athlete, enjoying a sport that you're really good at. And then one day, a senseless, careless act by another individual causes you to have an injury that is so debilitating and so life-changing that it transforms you from being thriving, healthy, and happy to dealing with chronic pain every single day of your life. Moving from being able to think clearly to struggling cognitively to do things like even speak and read. My guest today is a 20-year-old University of Arizona student who had an injury like this, not once, but 3 times, and how it completely changed her life. But she didn't let it beat her. In fact, her story is one of grit, determination, and can-do. You're going to love the conversation that I have with Gabriella Kostiew today as she walks you through how she's been able to triumph over tragedy and excel in spite of challenging circumstances. Sit back and enjoy this conversation with Gabriella Kostiew.
Hello and welcome to Hero Up, the podcast that inspires and challenges you to step up and become heroic in all areas of your life. I'm your host, Tony Stark Polici, and it's my goal to give you practical, actionable advice and insights into copywriting, mindset, lifestyle, and impact. On this show, we'll explore how to create compelling and persuasive marketing messages, and I'll give you clever tips to make you stand out as a hero. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a freelancer, a coach, or a creative, this podcast is for you. So, let's dive in.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Hero Up podcast. And today I'm extremely excited because I have an amazing young guest. Her name is Gabby Kostiew, and I've had the pleasure of knowing her for quite a few years and seeing her grow up. And she is here today because she's got an amazing story of overcoming obstacles and difficulties and challenges and really just soldiering through and making things happen in her life. Gabby, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
So I'm really excited to talk to you about what you've done in your young life. And I know at the time of this, you're how old? 20 years old?
20 years old, yep.
20 years old. So I know that you have wisdom beyond your years, and I'm excited to get into some of that today. But I want to talk a little bit about, so as a kid, Gabby, tell me, what are some of the things that you were involved in when you were a child? What kind of activities?
Yeah, I was very involved with sports and even some like extracurriculars like piano lessons and art class. Mostly I switched into soccer though. I played soccer for most of my childhood. I tried out gymnastics, I tried out ballet, and none of it was as exciting to me as soccer was. So I kind of stuck with soccer for the remainder of my childhood.
Okay, you also have you have a sister too, right?
Yes.
Okay. And was your sister also athletic?
Cora is she's still very athletic. She was kind of a jack of all trades as well. She did ballet. She had her gymnastics. She was very big in gymnastics. She had flamenco as well. And obviously she is very intelligent as well. So she was kind of doing everything. She did swim, kind of more into her high school years, but she stuck with gymnastics mostly, I think, during her childhood.
Okay, so gymnastics was your sister's thing, and soccer was primarily yours, right?
Yeah. She tried out soccer. It just didn't quite go as well for her. She didn't really like the kids running up on her when she was trying to find ladybugs in the grass.
So yeah, we here in the United States we call it soccer. Everywhere else it's football. Mm-hmm. So what position did you play?
I kind of played everywhere. When I first started, I was more in the offensive forward positions. I remember I used to be right wing, so I would do a lot of the crosses over. I'd assist a lot with goals. And as I kept going, I kind of started moving a little bit farther back. So I started being defender. And then I think it was just one random day, my dad, who was my soccer coach at the time, he kind of pushed me into goalkeeper, and I really fell in love with being goalie and being keeper. And so from that point on, it was like kind of my position.
What did you like the most about being goalkeeper?
I liked seeing everything. I liked seeing the whole entire field in front of me and seeing what my teammates are doing and kind of almost seeing the plays happen before they would happen, and getting good at kind of predicting that and predicting where someone was going to shoot the ball and how they were going to, and kind of those breakaways. I really liked the adrenaline I would get when it was one-on-one, where someone on the other team had gotten through my defense and it was just me and them. And so that was something I got excited about.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I know that one of the things that happened to you when you were playing soccer was you had a pretty intense injury. Is that right? What was the injury that happened to you?
Yeah, I got a pretty severe concussion while playing keeper, I think in almost like 10 years ago now. But yeah, bad concussion.
So how old were you then?
It must have been maybe like 10 years old. Yeah, like
10?
I'd say 10 years old, maybe like 11, close to 11.
Okay. Can you take us back to that moment of your first concussion?
Yeah.
What happened? How did it initially impact your life? Tell us the story.
Yeah, so I was playing keeper for kind of like not really a high stakes game. It was just a regular Saturday game. I think my soccer team was winning. I don't think this was like me saving the goal that won us the game. I think it was going to be fine no matter what. It was close to the end of the game and there was a breakaway. So a person had gotten through and I was kind of trying to get the ball, and so they shot it and I dove over the ball, so went on top of the ball, was leaning over the ball and kind of had it tucked underneath me where my like torso is, and the girl on the other team who maybe she had shot it or whatever, she was still pretty close to me because I had just stopped the ball, and she ended up, by some happens chance, she ended up kicking me in the head a few times. So missed the ball and was kicking me in the head for a while, to the point where the referees had blown the whistles. So it wasn't just like a one and done thing. It was repeated.
Oh my God. So you're on top of the ball. You've got the ball probably in your midsection somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
And this girl was repeatedly kicking you in the head.
Yeah. And, I'm very lucky because both my parents were at the game. My dad was one of the coaches, so it was pretty quick. Like, he was on the field. Both my coaches were on the field, and the referees had blown the whistle. I don't even remember what happened to the girl. I just immediately, the side of my face was super swollen. I remember my mom was very worried that I had fractures in my face because of how instantly it swelled, and I had a cleat mark on my face. And I left to go basically straight to the hospital straight after that. I didn't end up staying the game. I just kind of left after that. My mom took me to the hospital.
Well, yeah, I can imagine. So
Yeah.
Let me just understand this. This wasn't like a school team. This was like a community league or a city league or something?
This was just kind of like, I guess it could be a rec league. It was a club, so it was club soccer.
Okay.
And this was before there was any real requirements on wearing concussion headbands. Not that that would have really done much, but there wasn't really much protecting me or like preventing that from happening. And so my mom was driving me to the hospital, and I just remember her in the car saying, don't fall asleep, because it was just like, I don't think my sister had ever experienced something like this. I had obviously never experienced something like this, so it was very new because there was just not a whole lot of knowledge about what was happening.
This sounds horribly traumatic, as if this girl perhaps had intentionally was actually trying to hurt you.
Yeah, I remember my mom telling me after the fact that the girl who had kicked me was crying, and so my mom went up to her parents afterwards and kind of said, Gabby's going to be okay. She doesn't need to worry about it. She doesn't need to feel bad. And I guess the girl's parents had said, no, she got hit in the stomach with a soccer ball. That's why she's crying. And so it kind of was just weird all around on that team's side of things.
Wow. Crazy. Okay. So you're on the way to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
What happened? What do you remember from that?
Honestly, I just remember my mom telling me not to fall asleep. I was so tired right afterwards. I had an ice pack. I think my other coach gave me an ice pack, and I had it in the car with me. My mom was just telling me, don't fall asleep, don't fall asleep. I'm pretty sure my sister may have been there, and maybe she climbed in the back to kind of keep me awake and everything. I remember we got to, maybe it was an urgent care. I'm not quite sure if it was urgent care or hospital. Maybe I'm getting my concussions mixed up, but I think it was urgent care where they checked for fractures. I didn't end up having any, which was super lucky, very fortunate for that. And basically it was just instantly they knew. One of my pupils was super dilated, the other one wasn't. I had nausea. I was so tired and everything. And so the initial emergent or urgent care visit, I don't really have much memory about, but I remember the car ride there. My mom was pretty upset.
Yeah. All right. So in the days that followed, kind of what happened? Do you remember what it was like in the days after this injury?
Yeah, I definitely remember my mom. She made me go kind of just into my room. I didn't go to school for a little bit after that just because the doctor said, give her a few like weeks to rest basically. And I remember my mom wouldn't let me listen to anything even, so I had to have my lights off in my room and just kind of like be kind of with myself, not having any distractions or anything. And there was a few times that I would try to sneak listening to like a show or some music or anything, and she'd come in and she'd know, so she'd take that away. But those sort of few days afterwards, I had stayed home, kind of rested, and then going back to school, I still had the bruises and even like the cleat mark on my face. And I remember one of, not my friend, but just someone in my class was asking, why did you do your makeup like that? And I was like, I didn't do my makeup like this. These are bruises. And going back into the classroom, it was sort of just like, what happened to her? And it was kind of embarrassing a little bit because I had to say I got kicked in the face.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And my teacher, she didn't see it at first because I walked in and she just saw the one side of my face. And then I turned to her and she was just like, oh my gosh, what happened? So it was definitely kind of like interesting going back to school at first and just seeing the initial reactions from my peers and how they were kind of grossed out a little bit because they weren't nice purple bruises. They were kind of turning yellowish greenish at that point. So it was kind of not a good look for me.
Well, doesn't sound like a good look for anybody unless you're a boxer. But,
yeah, right.
Especially I think as a 10-year-old girl, middle school, right?
Yeah.
When we form our opinions about ourselves and we're very concerned about like being okay and not being weird. And that must have been traumatic for you. So, wow. And you had a cleat mark on your face. That, I hear that and that just like hurts my heart because this girl that kicked you, like, this doesn't seem like it was an accident. And wow. Okay. So going forward, did you continue to play soccer?
Yes. So I kept playing soccer for...
How long was it before you actually were able to get back on the field? Do you remember?
I'm not sure. I probably was very adamant on getting back to playing soccer. I really enjoyed everything that came with soccer. So I would say as soon as I could, I probably was back on the field, maybe taking it slow at first. I definitely struggled a little bit going back because I sort of lost that aggressiveness that I did have with soccer beforehand, where I got excited when it was a 1v1, but now I kind of shied away from those and I kind of kept more back into the goal rather than going to the top of the box and kind of being involved. And so going back to that, it was kind of difficult because there was a huge shift in me. And so my coaches, who one of them was my dad at the time, he noticed it, and it was difficult, I think, for him too, because he knew what I used to be like, and then I wasn't performing up to that level anymore. So it was very different getting back into it because I was kind of more scared to play now.
Sure. Yeah. So what happened as you went forward? Did you continue? Did you have any other injuries? Like what happened with soccer going forward?
Yeah. So I kept playing soccer. It's a lot easier to get more head injuries, kind of easier now. I don't need to have someone kicking me in the face. It could be something as simple as getting elbowed a little bit hard, or I had two other concussions after that, and one of them was someone on my team was kind of careless and kicked a ball, and it hit me straight in the back of the head, and instantly it was nauseous feelings. I think I went to the doctor. My pupils were kind of different sizes, and I started having just more intense, more frequent headaches. And so that was one of them. And then during a game, I think one of the very last sort of few games that I ended up playing, I got elbowed pretty hard in the side of my head. And I instantly kind of went off the field and knew that that didn't feel good. I think that from my first concussion forward, more teams started kind of using those concussion headbands. And so, I was wearing those, but sometimes they just don't protect you in the right spots. And so from that point on, I had two concussions additional. And then after that, I kind of pulled myself back in and then stopped playing towards the end of my 6th grade, starting 7th grade year.
Okay. So let me go back here for a moment after this first concussion when you were, I'm going to just say, it sounds like you were assaulted. Maybe whether it was intentional or not, I don't know. But the headaches, you mentioned headaches a minute ago. Did you start to have headaches after this first concussion?
Yeah, pretty much every day. From that first concussion, I was seeing concussion specialists and seeing basically just headache doctors. That first one, I was in a Banner concussion clinic, and so I'd get out of school a little bit early some weeks. It was frequent appointments because they had to check my baseline and kind of see if I was improving or not with cognitive function. I'm assuming just they had me doing these kind of random memory games or these matching things to see if I was getting better. And at that clinic, you would fill out your form, how are you feeling today? What was the worst headache you've had? How many headaches have you had? And it was almost always like 10 being the worst. That's the type of headaches I would have. And then how many? Probably almost every single day. Basically, as soon as that first concussion, I started having headaches pretty much almost every day, if not every other day.
Wow. Okay. So you're 10 years old. You go from being this healthy, active, vibrant young girl, really no pain or headaches prior to this. Okay. To now daily and most often a level 10.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So how did you deal with that?
I was very lucky that I had my mom to sometimes come pick me up from school when I was having just a really bad day with my headaches, because I was still kind of at that early age when it had first happened, obviously. And I know that we tried to not use painkillers or medications because it wasn't what we were wanting to do. So a lot of it was, okay, I'll go try to sit in a dark room. I'll go try to sleep in my bed, or try to do a headache hat with like the ice packs on your head. And really that was like pain management. It wasn't going to take medicine. There was a few days in junior high where I had gone to the nurse for almost 2 weeks in a row to get Tylenol, and she had to stop giving it to me because of whatever rule they have in their books. And so that was kind of, oh man, I can't get Tylenol from the nurse anymore. And so that was really the extent of that.
Wow. So Gabby, this evolved over a period of a couple years. Now, so from this point forward, you're going through the rest of your elementary school, middle school career, so to speak, and frequent, almost daily headaches.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Now, so I'm assuming you missed a lot of school, or there were days you had to come home part of the day or something?
Yeah, I tried my hardest not to miss school. My family was always super big on making sure that I wasn't missing time from school or taking away from my studies. And so I probably missed a majority of school in kind of those elementary to junior high age, that age group. But after that, it was high school. So it had to get serious. It had to be locked down and everything. So I would say I think there was at one point a tally of it. I think I missed maybe 30 days or so in sixth grade, maybe. And then in junior high, it would be missed periods. So I missed a few math classes or my afternoon classes when it would start to get worse throughout the day.
So you have mentioned the word headaches, but did they give you a different diagnosis? Did it move from headaches to something else?
Yeah, so they had diagnosed me with the post-concussion syndrome. I think that was closer to my 7th grade years because I just had these continued headaches, continued just painful experiences. I think I have a hard time calling them migraines because a lot of when I was kind of growing up and going to these concussion clinics or going to these neurologists or getting these like shots in my head or anything, like I really had a hard time because there was a lot of moments when a doctor would ask, like, you said you're experiencing a level 10 headache. Most people can't do anything at this level. And it kind of almost made me feel, well, maybe I'm not having that bad of a headache, or maybe I'm not having that bad of a migraine. So I feel like even still, like I have sort of that hard issue of kind of downplaying it where it makes it seem, okay, she had a headache, whatever, but they were big, all consuming headaches. I would sometimes lose my vision. I would sometimes lose hearing from ear to ear, and I would not be able to walk or not be able to even like think straight or listen to my teachers. And so it was more than just headaches. It was migraines or whatever they had determined it to be.
Use this term post-concussion syndrome. What is that? Can you tell me what that is?
Yeah, so just from my understanding, it's a continued symptoms after you have that concussion. So it's kind of like your brain was shaken up a little bit. With my first concussion, I had kind of whiplash as well. And I had obviously the concussion. And so your brain got shook up and it got hurt during that process. And so now it's trying to get back to what your baseline was with that damage that it sustained. And so my understanding of post-concussion syndrome was that, or I had a doctor that explained it to me using a purple bowl. And so you have your purple bowl on your head and that kind of protects you from outside things, but your brain got shook up inside of it. So now you just are having to deal with the ramifications of the headaches, the other symptoms that you may have.
Okay. So you moved through 7th and 8th grade, and what happened when you got to high school?
The migraines and headaches continued. When I was in 8th grade, I had a math teacher who really, I think, was looking out for me and noticed that it just took me an exponentially longer amount of time to do my work because it was still very recent where I was still trying to recover from some of those other secondary concussions. And she had suggested that I look into getting a 504, or I have my mom look into getting me on a 504 plan because there was one day where I think I got through 3 math test questions in the hour period, and that was the extent that I could do. I couldn't do more. I couldn't keep going because I had to go to the next class. And she's like, there's something not right here. Let's try to get this figured out for you. And so I was really lucky that I had someone like her kind of looking out and seeing like, there's something going on that's not normal. It's taking her too much time because with that post-concussion syndrome and with the headaches, I had to try to read, and it was increasingly difficult for me because I couldn't read a sentence like I used to. I had to read the word, think about what the word meant, and then move on to the next word and think about what that word meant. And it just took a long time. So a sentence like the dog jumped over the log, it was now what does the mean? Okay, dog, I know what a dog is. And so combining it then became very hard. So when I'm doing reading tests or when I'm doing math tests, it was so much. And so going into high school, I had that 504 plan and I had that set up for me, which was really nice.
Okay, so what is a 504 plan? Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so a 504 plan is covered under Section 504. It's not necessarily special education, but it is a plan that gets you sort of accommodations for whatever they deem you eligible for. So they had tests that I fit that criteria, where I was struggling with, I don't know, let's call it math. I was struggling with math because I couldn't get through the sentences, or I couldn't think about it, and I didn't have enough time. So with that 504 plan, I had accommodations set for me that would follow me all throughout the rest of my K through 12 education. So I had I had extra time, I think, for tests, and I think I had the ability to test in a not such a bright room. I could test in a darker room for my headaches. Yeah. And so with that 504 plan, it just kind of ensures that when I need those accommodations, I would get them because those are protected accommodations.
From what I understand, you didn't take full advantage of those accommodations. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't like taking advantage, and I felt very much so like I was taking advantage of my teachers or the system that they had kind of set in place for me. I don't think I ever used extra time on my tests. I never used a dark room, or I never used notes that I could have on the side for my memory issues or my processing issues. And that was just probably a combination of a work ethic where I'm wanting to show, I can do this by myself, I'm fine, whatever. And also comparing myself to my sister, who's very intelligent and very strong in her academics, where she never needed anything. So why would I need anything? So I kind of pushed through without those accommodations that were set for me.
So, a lot of people listening are probably thinking, wow, you had all the reason in the world for them to make things easier for you, and you didn't take it. Like, you didn't take the easy way out. I think that's tremendously courageous. Some other people may think, well, that's just kind of silly or stupid. So, Gabby, what is it about you? Where do you think this grit comes from? Where you have this this courage and this strength to just kind of soldier through these difficult circumstances?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a huge thanks to my mom, who just really instilled in me, school's your job. That's what you got to do. You have to get good grades. You have to get A's. And I think that was even from as young as like third grade, where grades really didn't matter. And so kind of carrying that through and bringing that into high school, and having that focus where, okay, my sister went to U of A on a full ride because she only got A's for her entire life. So I need to do that too. And having the, I was very, like, I could do it, and it wasn't so much that, oh, I don't want to use those accommodations because I don't want to look dumb in front of my friends. It was, there's no excuse to use those. Like, I can do it. I'm going to figure it out, even if it means that tomorrow at school, like, I maybe am not able to go because I have a pounding headache from the day before. It's that I have to get it done because I owe it to my teachers to show up and be present. And I owe it to myself and everyone else in the classroom to do my hardest work and kind of be a student that embodies what it means to, like, work hard in school and, earn good grades and earn scholarships in the future.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. I'm excited to talk about it because I'm privy to know what you accomplished going forward. But how did you manage to maintain your academic performance while dealing with daily migraines and all these difficulties, the processing difficulties? And it sounds to me almost like what you had to do cognitively was what someone would have to do with a severe brain injury, where they're actually relearning language and just processing skills. It sounds like some of that was a struggle for you. Like, how did you manage to maintain those great grades and do all this?
Yeah, it was definitely hard, kind of redoing those processing skills. And I think that was sort of my biggest thing, because I'd be listening to my teachers speak, and even kind of to compare it to Charlie Brown, it would kind of sound like the blah, 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 because I couldn't process it at that same level. And I even noticed that outside of school, where I would be in conversations with friends, or I'd be at the movies watching whatever movie it would be, and it was like I was 10 scenes behind, still trying to figure out, wait, how did we get to here? Because I'm still thinking about the sentences that they said. So in school, it was listening to my teacher's lecture, and I was 10 sentences behind trying to write notes, and I just couldn't keep up. And so I think that for me, it was a lot about just asking questions, because there was a lot of times where I would get so lost because I'm still thinking about what they said 2 chapters ago, and I wasn't on what they were doing now. So it was asking questions and kind of making myself look silly and saying, I'm so sorry, just to clarify, what are we talking about? And so having the courage to ask those questions and to be bold in those classrooms where it kind of is awkward because no one else is really participating in class, and I'm the only one that's asking questions and just not understanding things. But maintaining grades, it was a job. It wasn't something that A would be really great. It was, I'm expected to get an A, I'm going to get an A. And so maintaining grades looked a lot like doing projects super late, and my mom would stay up and help me with those projects, even if it wasn't her gluing things down, it was her staying up with me and kind of being there while I tried to put these projects, kind of square them away, put a pretty bow on them. And so a lot of maintaining grades is thanks to that, and thanks to just a good support system, and knowing that there's really no other option besides getting good grades. It's just good grades.
Well, it sounds to me like a lot of this was just I can do it attitude. I'm not going to quit no matter what. Yeah, sticking to it. So in addition to asking questions, what other coping mechanisms or strategies did you develop to overcome these challenges that you had, not only in the classroom, but just in your daily life?
Yeah, there was a few times where in class I would record lessons and just do it on whatever voice memos or whatever app it is on your phone. And I would record them and then listen back to it. There was sometimes where I'd have 2 notebooks where one of them was just my scribbly notebook where I could write kind of super fast and not have to worry about making perfect letters. And then from that notebook, I'd go to the other one and kind of translate what I had written down and make it into nice letters or nice handwriting. So that way I had something that was presentable and looked nice to read, and it wasn't just a bunch of scribbles that I couldn't write down fast enough. I think that there was also a little bit maybe of a improvement with my processing too. I know that senior year of high school, I still struggled with it, but it wasn't nearly as bad as when I was first entering high school or first kind of leaving 8th grade. It was kind of really rough, and there was a lot of processing. Just everything was delayed, but I felt kind of towards the end of my high school career, it was a little bit easier. COVID happened, which made everything go online, which there was some benefit to that where I felt, okay, now I can see everything on my screen that we're doing. I can type my notes a little bit faster than I can write my notes. So a lot of it also kind of was with the change of technology and everything.
So you were actually doing double the work in a way. You're taking notes and then you're rewriting your notes so they can be presentable and turned in and readable by your teachers.
Yeah, and a lot of that is also thanks to my mom, who growing up, it wasn't for turning in rough drafts to teachers. She would make me redo the rough drafts so they'd look like a final copy. And so instead of having just a rough draft, it was a fake rough draft that I could turn into teachers. So that kind of stuck with me, and it still sticks with me through almost everything.
Well, your mom sounds like an amazing woman. You come from a long line of amazing women, though, don't you?
Very much so, yes.
Yeah. I think if we talked about your grandmother, we'd have a whole nother hour we could discuss.
Definitely.
But I want to jump back for a minute to, so you're in high school now. How did, like, walking away from your favorite sport, your favorite physical activity, like, how did that impact you going forward? And what did you do with the energy and the passion and the devotion that you once had for soccer? Like, I mean, and first of all, I want to understand, or not understand, but state the obvious, is that everything about you had changed from a physical standpoint. You're now dealing with pain and trying to manage that. So it wasn't like you're just bouncing around with boundless energy. You're struggling with these different things. So I get that. but the emotional impact of not having this thing in your life that I'm sure at some level brought you a tremendous amount of joy and confidence. And it sounded like you were really like a go-getter, wanted to challenge people. Like, what replaced that? Did anything replace that?
Yeah, I still don't really know if I found something to replace it, because there's even still moments, and there was a lot of moments throughout high school that I thought about, maybe I could just try out for the soccer team here. Maybe I could just see how it goes. And I still even think about it sometimes, where maybe I'll just start playing soccer again and, join a rec team or whatever at the U of A. And obviously, I don't know, that ship has sailed. And so I think that there wasn't really any coping with losing it, because it's in my head, it's always been like, oh, well, maybe I can go back to it or something like that. But at least in those moments, it was really difficult, because it wasn't even just a sport to get out energy. It was also time I had with my really good friends. It was, my dad was the coach for a little bit, so I was able to kind of enjoy that too. And he had played soccer when he was younger, so it was something that was shared, and it was something that I was good at. In a way, it always goes back to comparing it to my sister, who was good at everything, was good at swim, was good at gymnastics, was great at school, and soccer was like my thing that I was good at. And so that kind of was hard to then, now I'm good at school, but I'm not excelling like she is, doing these crazy medical programs and whatever. And so it kind of took a little bit away from me of like my sense of pride in myself, because soccer was almost the only cool thing about me, I would say. So I don't know if I've really thought about if anything has replaced it. I know that during high school, I did track and field for a year just because I wanted to be active, get involved with my school. And otherwise, it really just became extracurriculars. Like, I did yearbook in high school. I really enjoyed that, actually. It was fun to sort of tap into that creative side. I started painting, thanks to a really great art teacher at my high school. And that was when COVID happened. So I had a lot more time to paint at home and kind of be creative with that. And otherwise, really no real activities, so physical activities, haven't really replaced it at all.
Something I picked up on that you said there was the only cool thing about you was soccer. That was your opinion, how you saw yourself, huh?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I even still think about it like that too. Like, the only cool thing about my childhood was that I was really good at soccer, and then that's sort of it.
Yeah. Well, I have the benefit of a number of years on you, and I think listening to you with the wisdom that I have of the decades that I've lived, your courage and your strength is a pretty darn cool thing about you. Just listening to what you went through, and there's a whole list of cool things about you, but we won't get into that. You mentioned this art teacher that helped you, and I happen to know you're an amazing artist.
Oh, thank you.
So, how was she particularly influential in you, in your getting involved with art?
She actually was a very strong support system throughout high school, even after I had her for my sophomore year of high school. She was even very helpful to the point where when I'd walk in the room, she'd dim the lights. She knew that I was dealing with these headaches, and she knew, okay, she missed a week of school last week because it was a nonstop headache. Let's work on that together. And she would do very casual things where she'd come up behind me and just ask, hey, how are you feeling today? And she was very good about checking in. And so learning from her became easier, because she was already willing to sort of do these things that made me a more successful student in her classroom, at least. And so it wasn't ever about, oh, you're not, we need to be doing art this way. It was, I can do art in the best of my abilities, and I'm supported through her. And so I was really lucky just to sort of have that support system where I could go to a class where the lights would be dimmed. I'd be able to walk in and just really relax from the busy day at school, and learn from someone who just genuinely cared about her students.
So she sounds like a powerful part of your support system. Can you tell me some more about the other people in your life that, support systems, family, friends?
My family is huge for me. They have been there at all my doctor's appointments. They were there for me driving me and picking me up from school when I was having a pretty rough day with the headaches, driving me to chiropractors, cranial sacral therapy, homeopathic therapy. I got Botox injections for my headaches. I had nerve blocking shots, and they were really big with just wanting to find something that would actually work and would actually stick and stay working. Because a lot of things, it would work for the first few weeks or the first few months, and it would just stop. I got used to it or whatever it was. And so it was a lot of adjusting with that, and taking the time to trust me and that, this isn't working anymore. Let's try to find something else. And so my family is huge with that. I had really great friends that would sometimes drop me off gift baskets when I would miss a week or two at school because of these never-ending headaches, and they would drop me off just things that they knew would make me feel better. Same thing with my boyfriend Wyatt. He would sometimes drop me off Gatorades or drop me off something that would just make me feel better, or be understanding to the fact that I have to lay in a room that's dark. I can't really talk or anything like that. And so I was very lucky with the friends and family that I have. And then as for teachers, most of my teachers, they knew what was going on, especially in my later years of high school, sort of junior year and senior year. They were incredibly kind. They would make packets and then give it to Wyatt, my friends, to give it to me, and I could do it at home. And so they were really great about figuring out what would best work for me.
So you mentioned all these different appointments, and you've taken a multi-dimensional, or I'm forgetting the word here, but a disciplinary approach to attacking the pain. What motivated that decision in minimizing the use of medications and narcotics, and maybe not even using those at all? What was behind those choices?
I think a lot of it just was, I'm still young, but I was so young that it just wasn't proportional, and it didn't make sense to have me on these intense painkillers or intense narcotics or medicines. It wouldn't make sense. And so we wanted to approach it in a way where we could really target the main issue of everything. And so we tried everything. We tried no dairy, no gluten. We tried these massages. We tried the nerve blocks. And so I think it got to a point too where it just was listening to people who had the same experiences and then kind of going off of them. But I know that for even my sister, who had knee surgeries in her junior high age area, it was the same thing, that we just don't want to be put with those medicines and then have the side effects with those.
That's very courageous, smart too. Can you think back to a moment or a time when maybe you felt really discouraged and maybe didn't, because, listening to you, I think, wow, she's been courageous. She's just always had grit and fought through it. And I'm wondering, were there moments where it wasn't like that, where you felt like, man, I just don't know if I can deal with this another day?
Yeah, there was one moment in my junior year of high school where I had to have my mom. I was able to drive myself to school at that point, but I had to come and have her pick me up because I lost my vision in math class, and I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't see anything. I was in just horrible pain. I could barely even text my mom. I had to have my teacher actually text her for me. I went up to her desk and I was like, there's something wrong. I need this to be taken care of. And I had to have my mom come and pick me up, and it just was getting home and going to the urgent care and getting a migraine cocktail where it's all these different things, and I don't feel good the next days. And then it became a 2-week long migraine where it was just constant pain, where it was like, what is wrong with me? Why am I having these things? Like, why can it not just be done? I can't even go outside. I can't walk around. I don't even want to open my eyes because it just hurts so badly. Like, this isn't fair, And so I think that was one point where it was just like, what in the world? What can we do to stop these? And I think that was probably like the most down I'd ever been about it. And other than that, it was just a lot of here and there things where, for the first time in my life, I struggled with school, where I hadn't ever really had those issues before, or I struggled with going to school and wanting to go to school because I knew by the end of the day I would just be dead and my head would just be killing. And so it kind of took the fun out of being at school and interacting with people. And even there was at some point in junior high where I had to switch my electives from a very fun drama class to something else because it was just too loud and it had way too much effect on my headaches and I couldn't be in that classroom anymore. So it was even like those sort of sacrifices where it's like, okay, I have to figure out something else. So I think there was little moments along the way, but it definitely came to a point my junior year of high school.
Do you have any like tips or secrets for how you maintain a positive attitude through times like that, or how you got back to it? I know that there were times when you felt down, you felt discouraged, and what brings you back to this place of, being positive? Because you're just, I've always known you to be so joyful, right? That's kind of what you radiate. How do you do that?
It's all about, I think, my support system. I'm very, very blessed and very lucky with it. And it sort of goes back to when I was younger, I was called a citrus girl or a sunshine girl. And so I want to be that person for my family. And so thinking about it in terms like that, where, okay, I can deal with the headache for an hour, but I can put on a good face for my family and sort of just have that mentality going through all of these things. And it really just goes back to, I want to be a positive person for my family. So I'm gonna be that person for my family.
What you're saying to me sounds like, are you being authentic when you're in these moments? Like, how do you shift between like, okay, I'm in such pain, but I'm going to show up this way? Like, what does, being authentically who you are and how you feel, how does that show up for you? How does that look for you?
It's communication. I'm pretty transparent. As soon as I would get home from school, I would tell my mom, oh my gosh, I have the worst headache today, whatever. And whether that's her understanding and making me a tea and bringing it up to me as I like take a quick nap, or if that's, putting on that sort of like, I have a headache today, but I'm excited to have this night with us, and I think it's just about that upfront communication rather than the sort of later in the day communication where it's okay, I was snappy, it's because I had a headache, I'm sorry. It's more so at the beginning of it where I'm able to, at least I try to let people know, and that's how I would show up then.
The thing about migraines, headaches, internal pain, when somebody has a physical malady or a condition that is visible, it's easy for people to look and then oftentimes have compassion or whatever, whether they're going to be compassionate or they're going to make fun of you. People do all kinds of things. But suffering with something like headaches, chronic headaches, migraines, chronic pain, it's a bit invisible. People can't see it. And did it ever feel like, people were looking at you going, oh, come on, with your headaches again? How does having this invisible condition, how does that impact your life and dealing with friends and social situations and different things?
I think it makes it a little bit more difficult. Like I said, there was even points when nurses would ask me, are you sure that's what you're feeling? And It would make me sort of question myself, where I would think, okay, well, I thought that's what I was feeling. This is pretty bad pain, but I'll put a 7 instead of a 10, whatever. And so I think even translating that into things with friends, it's kind of hard when I get home and I had a long day at work or whatever, and I have a horrible headache, and it's just, I want to be done. I don't want to talk to anybody. And it's different from what my friends or family would normally expect. And it's hard for me too, because I know that they deserve better treatment, but it's like, I don't want to talk to anybody right now. And it's difficult because I never would want someone to think, oh, like she's just a crabby person, but it's just, my brain, it's just in too much pain. And so I think it affects me in the way where it's like, I do worry a lot that people don't believe me. I won't call out of work because of a migraine, because I feel like it's a kind of a common general excuse that people use. And so I'll just go to work, I'll deal with it, whatever. And I think that that's what makes it hard, because it makes me feel not in a place where I can miss class, or at least now at the college level where, I don't want to miss class where there's a professor there, or miss work and have it be just because, I have a migraine. It's like, I don't want to look like everybody else who uses an excuse like that.
Wow. So college, you're in college now. Tell me a little bit about what happened. So you got through you got through high school and all of your grades, they didn't tank, right? Like you didn't go to like a B student or a C student. Like tell me what happened through all of this, dealing with the pain and missing classes. Like what happened your senior year?
I was very, very determined. There was even like one class that I took where I got a B, so I retook it and brought it back up to an A. I really wanted to work hard and get those scholarships, and I was awarded by U of A a full ride that covered my tuition. And I'm very lucky and very grateful for that because it's huge. It takes away that sort of stress and financial worries that would come along with that. And so it was based on merit in school, and I'm very, very lucky to be able to use that and continue going to U of A because it renews.
You know, the thing I love about you, Gabby, as I listen to you talk, is that you have this tremendous sense of humility. That you say that you're lucky and you're blessed, and I believe that and agree with that 100%. And I also recognize that you worked extremely hard to get where you're at. So that's amazing. That's an amazing truth. Tell me, how did these experiences in your life like shape what you're doing in college? What was there anything in high school that you did that kind of led you into what you're pursuing now in school?
Definitely. It even started as early as junior high, where instead of being in that drama class where it was too loud, I switched into being a peer facilitator for a self-contained special education classroom. And it was the best decision. I absolutely fell in love with everything that special education programs offer. I think that the connections that you can make with students, they can just be so profound without even really having to say anything. You can just have that sort of instant connection. And so throughout high school, I continued with that as well. I became involved in clubs like Best Buddies or Puma Pals, where you're able to have a one-on-one connection with students in the special education program. And so even with my own experiences of having a 504 and being accommodated, or having that sort of accommodation where teachers look out for you, you know, that's made me really want to show up and be that person for students where they can come to and they can really trust that they're going to have that their backs are going to be had, you know, and that you can depend on teachers and you can have these authority figures in your life that aren't just parents or guardians or whoever, it's teachers too. And so I started doing K through 12 special education. That's my major at U of A, and I love every minute of it. It's all just it's everything that I want to do. And it really affirms that too, even learning about the sort of more intricate details about 504s and IEPs, where I'm able to learn and think about, oh yeah, like that makes sense. Like that would make sense why my teachers had to do these things, you know? And so it all is very rewarding in its own way, where I'm able to kind of continue being excited about something like that.
Do you find yourself being an advocate for these kids? Like maybe because, well, when I hear you, it sounds like you're an advocate for these students that you work with, children and students that you work with. Is that because you had advocates for you, or because you felt like you needed advocates for yourself? Is there some of that plays into that, or is that not part of it?
Definitely. There was always, I felt, someone that had my back, whether that was my mom going into school or picking me up, or emailing teachers being my point of communication where, hey, this is what's going on, and not having to have that weight on myself. That was always really nice too. But it also became, you know, like as I got older, it was, okay, this is your responsibility too now. And so it was a lot of advocating for myself and having support through that from like my parents. And I think that going into school now to do this, it just is, I would love to say I'm an advocate for students with disabilities, because that is just everything that I want to be. And I hope that I can kind of increase my role in that sort of way throughout the next few years. But I think that it's just so important for kids to have the opportunity to be successful. And if it's a 504 or an IEP or any sort of accommodation that can be made that just kind of gets them through the day rather than having to go home early or feeling like they're not successful in school, I think that that's incredibly important.
You also, you've accomplished quite a few other things in your high school career too. You learned to speak another language, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah. Sign language.
Sign language. and not just at a basic level. Tell me about what you achieved with the sign language.
Yeah, I was able my junior year to test, and I got a seal of biliteracy from the state of Arizona. And so that got put on my diploma where I'm certified bilingual, which is really great. I love sign language. I absolutely fell in love with that language and everything that is attached to it, the culture and everything. And that's huge for me too. And the opportunity that I may have to use it in my future work it's really exciting.
Isn't there some kind of special distinction you have with the level of comprehension or adeptness that you have with the sign language?
Yeah,
It's kind of unique.
Yeah, it's that test that I took that had that seal of biliteracy. It puts you past just fluent or an ASL4 level. You sort of have that, and so I was able to then bring that to U of A, and I was able to test out of all their ASL classes too. So it's very very special to have that and be able to use that in whatever capacity I can.
Yeah, super unique. So Gabby, looking back on your amazing, young, but very productive and full life, what would you say has been the key to your success in not becoming a victim of your circumstances?
I think maybe just accountability, where it wasn't always me holding myself accountable. It was also my family members holding me accountable because, they know what I'm capable of. And there were some points where I couldn't really necessarily see what I was capable of, but being given that push and, owning it, that I can do whatever I'm able to set my mind to, or I can take a break for a second, but I got to get right back into it because no one else is going to do my work for me, or no one else is going to take these tests for me. It's me that has to do it. And so I have to prove to be successful in my own way. And bringing that into school where there's only 6 people in my program, and it's a reminder that, no one else is wanting to do this. So it's me. I have to show up for classes. I have to show up for students because I have to be accountable for that. And so I think it's just a big accountability all around, whether it's my family holding me accountable, my mom telling me, you have to make it look nicer, you have to do this. And so reminding me that I can be a above average student, not just give that 110%, but give more than that too.
Yeah, not doing just the minimum of what's required, but going the extra mile.
Right.
Has your post-concussion syndrome impacted or influenced your perspective on life and your plans for the future too?
There's a lot that has impacted me in the sense that I still have these headaches. Even now, they're a lot less frequent just because I think that I found something that actually is working for me. And that was after a lot of tedious doctor's visits and just going to anywhere that would possibly be able to treat me. And so I think that for me, it was just working through all of that. And now I think it's just a lot about how can I in the future see these students for beyond what's going on, but also sort of recognize, you're not just a student in school, you're not just having a B, there's something else going on, and having that sort of compassion towards that, where maybe it's not just a failing grade on a test, but it's also it's just the student. You have to really consider what's going on with them. So I think having that knowledge of that really helps me with that idea.
This sense of it's more than what meets the eye.
Exactly. And exactly. And it's like you had said, it's sort of an invisible thing to deal with. And so, I might show up to school and my first and second period teachers be, oh yeah, Gabby's great, super bubbly. But then my afternoons teachers are not agreeing with that. And it's just recognizing that the student as a whole is not just what you're seeing, at face value. And so really thinking about bringing that into every aspect of life, where you have no idea what's going on at home. You have no idea what just happened on the bus for these students. And so thinking about that and bringing it into like my future as a teacher, I think that's super important.
There's this saying that I heard, and when I remember it, it's really profound. And it is, you do not know the secret battles that everyone else is fighting, right? And I think when I keep that in mind, I tend to be less judgmental, more patient, more loving, more accepting with others. And I tend to forget that far too often. The show is called The Hero Up Show. And really, I bring people on because I want my listeners to get this sense that they can be the heroes in their own life. They can overcome things. They can meet their goals. They can achieve their dreams. And I'm wondering for you, from this beautiful, beautiful perspective you have as a young adult, what message would you like to send to others who may be struggling with similar challenges, particularly pain or any of the other things that you went through?
For everyone, it should be just to prioritize empathy and prioritize, making yourself sort of uncomfortable to maybe try to help someone else. You should always extend that hand. If I didn't have teachers who would extend a hand to me, I don't know exactly where I'd be along in my academic journey. But then for people who sort of struggle with pain, I think it's a lot about not giving up, not just succumbing to whatever pain that you're experiencing, but it's, putting trust in those around you that they will also lift you up and they can do the best they can to support you, but finding your own sort of sense of community where it might not be your family members, but it might be someone who you can empathize with and relate to, and they can empathize with you. And I think that is the best way to sort of push through that, because you can't do it when you're by yourself. You have to have someone that can also sort of lift you up and kind of give you that strength when you are depleted of it.
Yeah. So, Gabby, we're having this conversation 20 years from now. What will have had to have happened in your life for you to feel like you've succeeded, accomplished the goals that were important to you, made everybody proud? What will have had to have happened 20 years from now as we're sitting down talking?
I think for me, a big part is just becoming a teacher and having my own classroom and having students that feel like they can trust me with everything. If I have a student that comes back to me even in 10 years and they say, wow, like, I didn't like going to school, but I liked being with you. I think that is the most rewarding thing. Even just with family, I think that if we're all able to just be able to sit down and be together, that's rewarding enough. It's okay. We pushed through it. It's all in the past now, with all the doctor's appointments, with all of even just like the money spent on these appointments and these treatments. We're past it. We can all be together and we can enjoy our time together. And I think that would be what would remind me that all of that was worth it, because now I'm here and I can sit and enjoy something with my family members.
When you were talking a moment ago about the advice that you would give someone else to get through, something occurred to me, and I don't know if you think about this, but there's this concept of getting through things a moment at a time, a minute at a time, an hour at a time, a day at a time. Is that ever a strategy that you used where you're like, I can get through this next hour, or this day is going to pass? Is that a strategy that has worked for you?
For sure. It's day by day with everything. And I always like to think of my problems, instead of they're all stacked up and they're towering over me, it's just stacked like this. And so I have one thing that I can handle at a time. And if I'm able to do that one thing and be successful with that, then I can call it a accomplished day. And maybe I can do two things the next day. But as long as I just keep moving, I don't stay stuck on that one thing. I think that's a big part about processing it too. It's that one thing, I processed it. I am sad about it. I let it go, and now I can move on to the next thing. But it's not always going to be that sort of quick paced process. It's going to sometimes take time. And so, like you were saying, it's minute by minute, hour by hour, but it's also just allowing yourself the time to recognize, okay, I got up, I made my bed today. Tomorrow I'll get up, make my bed, go to the gym. It's those little things, where those little accomplishments that you can really make yourself a successful person, I think.
Yeah, that's great. All right, Gabby, the last question that I want to ask you today is the one that I like to ask everyone. Who do you want to be a hero to in your life?
I think just my family. I think, my mom, obviously my stepdad, my dad, my sister. Why I want to be a hero to all them. I want them to see that all their support has led to something good. I want to be someone that they feel proud of when they talk about, that they want to brag about to their friends or to whoever. And even going so far as to remember those teachers that really had my back too, thinking about if I'm able to one day go back to them and say, hey, this is where I'm at. I want them to see that what they did had an impact. And so just those really few special people that I have had, I would really want to be seen as just someone that, they can bring light into other people's lives too. So
That's wonderful. Gabby, one thing that stands out about you is that you lead with kindness. You just radiate that kindness. In spite of everything else, I know that you said you can be grumpy sometimes and welcome to the human race, right? But everything about you is considerate and kind. And I think that you make the world a better place. And I'm so grateful that you took the time to share with us today your journey and your wisdom and what you've been through. And I know that you're making a tremendous impact and you will continue to do that. So thank you so much for being that sunflower, that shining light, and the hero that you are to the people that you probably don't even know you're a hero to already. I appreciate you spending time with us here today. Thanks so much.
thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you in the next episode. Gabby, thanks again.
Thank you for tuning in to Hero Up. I hope today's episode challenged you to step up as a hero in your field and provided you with valuable insights to express your unique voice and message. If you found this episode helpful and motivating, please leave a review and share it with your friends and family. And remember to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes and amazing guests. Until next time, find your voice, share your message, live your mission.